So today I'm going to walk you through my entire solo guitar arrangement of the song Polka Dots and Moonbeams. And if you like this style of learning, I have an entire solo guitar system over at oneguitarcourse.com. So the first tip I want to give you is to always pick good songs. Songs with great melodies, great harmony, and if possible, also songs with great lyrics. Don't waste your time learning songs that you don't think are good songs. That's only going to make it harder to actually make it sound good on the guitar. And with this arrangement, I wanted to very closely follow the lyrics of the song and try my best to tell that same exact story on the guitar. I call this narrative solo guitar. Someone else might call it something else, but we're going to focus on that today. A country dance was being held in a garden. I felt a bump and heard an "oh, beg your pardon." And when I heard those lyrics, the thing that came to my mind was like an old black and white movie, a guy with a suit and a fedora, you know, he walks into a garden and there's a party going on. So he's kind of walking around and someone bumps into him by mistake. But the key point here is that I see this part of the song as kind of a setup. It's kind of an introduction. The narrator is telling you what's happening when the song starts. So in terms of playing my chord melody arrangement, I wanted to keep that section very, very sparse. In my mind, it's in black and white. So I came up with this. Now you're going to notice in that entire section, I didn't play one chord. I only played single notes for the melody, and I only played bass notes for the harmony. And if you look at that quickly, if I play it fast, it might seem like some fancy counterpoint, but it's actually really, really simple. In fact, the melody of the song is telling us exactly what to do. The melody of this part of the song is basically just an ascending F major scale. So the first melody note of the song is C. The first harmony is F major. So we have an F major triad. That very common shape you already know. And then we move to a D minor chord right here. And for that portion, I just use my bass note to walk back to that D root note, while I ascended with the melody. So if I just play that melody, I look at my music and I look at just the bass notes for each of those notes, and I add a different scale tone in between, we get that whole section. And then at this point, I added a little bit faster of a bass line just because it was easy to grab right here. And now we're done with that whole first line. Remember, the point of the narration at this point is to set the scene for the song. In my mind, it's in black and white, and that's setting the scene of the song. So when we get to the next portion of lyrics, I felt a bump and heard an "oh, beg your pardon." We have almost the exact same melody and mostly the same chords. I simplified things even further by, again, focusing on the lyrics. So I start with my same counterpoint kind of an idea, but I do it with this F up here on the 13th fret. And when I get to the word bump, I accent that note a little bit to kind of give the idea of bumping someone. You kind of get, you know, thrown off guard for a second.
In a garden, I felt a bump. Then an "oh, beg your pardon."
And then we go to the "oh, beg your pardon." Now in this case, again, following the lyrics, when you say "oh, beg your pardon," that "oh" is kind of like an accented kind of a thing. "Oh, beg your pardon." So I give that chord a very sharp, quick attack. And moving away, I just, again, play the bass note and the melody note. Now, in my whole arrangement, that whole beginning part, A country dance was being held in a garden. The guy in a fedora walks in. It's kind of, the evening. He's looking around. I felt a bump and heard an "oh, beg your pardon." Someone bumps him. He turns around and looks. And in my version of this song, that's kind of when the world kind of freezes, when you find someone that you're in love with for the first time. So I have a little bit of a pause right there, and then I try to be a little bit more lyrical, a bit more vocal, and add some harmony to the next line. Suddenly I saw polka dots and moonbeams all around a pug-nosed stream. So this whole little passage is a great example of how when you have a great song with great harmony and a great melody, it's going to do all the work for you. The harmony says play D minor, I'm playing a D minor 7, but the melody notes are right there. And then the next chord it's telling us to play is a B flat minor 6, and there goes the melody note right there again. The next chord is F major with C in the bass, but I just play F major by itself to make it even simpler. And again, the melody notes are right underneath our fingers when we play the chord. And then we have this descending minor 7 kind of a thing. And instead of playing minor 7, I just play a minor triad. And then continue with the melody. C dominant 7, the melody note again is right there. Easy to grab that one as well. And then I'm moving to an A minor 7 chord. And then it's telling us to play a C7 going back to that F major 7, something like this. Normal 5-to-1 motion. Instead of that C dominant 7, I'm playing a G diminished. Now, don't get worried. This is actually super simple. Here's the rule. Whenever you're playing a 5 chord leading to 1, you can almost always, instead of playing the 5 chord, play a diminished 7th chord a half step above. So I can play C sharp diminished, going to that F major, instead of the dominant 7 to F major. I played a G diminished, but a G diminished is just a different inversion of a C sharp diminished. All right? And that gets us back to the next verse of the song. And so as we go to this next verse, instead of doing some fancy reharmonization, I'm just going to play the exact same chords that are written on the sheet, and I'm going to change things up by following what the lyrics are explaining to us. The music started and was I, the perplexed one. So since the music started in the little song that we're playing here, I'm going to fill this in with more chords, and I'm going to play in a way that's more gridded, right? When you're listening to music, dance music live, it's going to be more to a grid. So I just play, again, what is given to us. And again, as you saw, each one of those chords and each one of the melody notes, it's all right next to each other because this is a well-written song. A very small tip here when you're playing solo guitar arrangements. I'm using a pick today. I use my fingers as well, just to show you I'll do this with my fingers. A lot of times you have to think about where the melody is going to make sure you have your fingerings correct. So for example, this little part, I could play that with my pinky, but then I have to grab that D minor 7. So a slightly more efficient way to do this would just to be to play the beginning with the pinky, and then to switch to using my first finger to bar to play that one note, because that sets us up to play the D minor 7. So instead of this, we do it like this. And that's going to make sure that it's a smooth transition and that you're not breaking up the melody too much. I held my breath and said, "May I have the next one?" So in my mind, in my little movie here, he's kind of nervous. He saw her go over to the bar, right? He takes a deep breath. He's kind of shaking a little bit, and he walks over kind of anxiously to ask her that question. So in that portion, I'm going to go back to playing just the melody and one other note because I want to simulate that kind of step, step, step feeling. So I came up with this. So each one of those notes should be choppy and a bit unsure of themselves, just like he is as he's walking up kind of nervously. And then when we get to that, "May I have the next one?" we want that chord to be very, very pretty, very elegant, like you're trying to impress somebody. "May I." So instead of playing a D minor 7 by itself, I keep that same melody note in there, which is the 4th, makes it an 11 chord. It just sounds a bit prettier. And now we're moving back to our normal melody here, except we're going to play the chords instead of the bass notes. And now again, back to the same thing we learned before. So we're adding that D flat right before we continue, and again, that's written right in the music. Now that little ending right there, I played our normal dominant 7th chord. The next melody note is right here. So I slid up to that melody note and played some of the notes from the chord for that as well. So we have the root and the 3rd, and then the melody note, which is the 6th. And then we're just sliding back to end with that F major triad. So now we're going to the B section of the song, and I just want to quickly say that one of the beautiful things about these old school love songs is that there was always a bit of tension built into the song, right? We have Polka Dots and Moonbeams. This is a song about falling in love, but he's calling her a pug-nosed person, so she's not the prettiest girl in the world, perhaps. And that's one common aspect of these old jazz standards. The lyrics often have a bit of darkness and a bit of, tongue-in-cheekness to them built in. We can exploit that with our different chords and melodies. Even like My Funny Valentine, those lyrics are kind of mean. The Nearness of You, there's a bit of sourness to those lyrics. All of these old love songs have that. To get to that B section, we need a tension chord, so we get an E7 written in the music. But to make that even simpler, I'm just playing an E augmented triad. Remember that whenever we have a dominant 7th chord, or I should say, very often when we have a dominant 7th chord, the purpose is just to create tension. So instead of playing a tense dominant 7, I'm playing a tense augmented triad. And by the way, if you're getting confused by any of this, me talking about these specific 7th chords and major chords or any of these augmented chords, onecourse.com, I explain all of this type of information in a very simple way, and it's easy for you to follow. But let's just continue here. Now, we're going to break it down because, again, the melody is always right under our fingers and the chords fit perfectly and it's super simple. Now, with this next lyric, as we floated over the floor, when I was arranging this the first time, I was really struggling to find a way to play all of the chords along with the melody in an efficient way. Up until this point, it's been easy. This section was a little bit harder for me. And so what did I do? I thought about what the lyrics are saying. As we floated over the floor, we want something to be very light and airy in this section. You're floating on the dance floor. So I came up with just playing one bass note, and that's A. And whenever I can play an open string, I tend to play a harmonic because it just sounds nice, especially with this idea of floating. Now to me, that sounds very floaty. So I just played the melody, but whenever possible, I left a trail finger down to keep that note sustaining. And then as I go to floor, I'm sliding up to the melody note and playing the chord that they're telling us to play. that little portion, that little idea I had there, it's a great example of how when you get stuck in a song, don't think about that as though we have this now extremely difficult barrier that we have to overcome. Look at the guitar and instead use it as an opportunity to play things even simpler and to convey something different than what you've been playing thus far. So that whole section basically repeats the same way. So again, the melody is just following right with the chords. One quick tip here is that as you've been playing this and as you learn these type of chord arrangements, you want to start to get used to separating the idea of the melody and the harmony. We want the harmony to almost be like a little platform for the melody. So if I'm playing, I don't know, I don't want each one of those notes to be the same exact volume. We want to give some space, let the harmonies be separate from the melody, let the melody stand out. So I played this chord lighter, I played the melody louder. Light chord. And you just get better at this as you go. In some instances, it's actually easier with the fingers. Now in a cottage built of lilacs and laughter. In my mind, this means that, they went through all of this dance, they had a little bit of a life, and then they got married. And so we're kind of at this point where we're very much established as a couple, we're established as people. If you're established as a guitar player, you should be able to play a lot of chords with different melody notes pretty quickly. So I play almost the same thing I played in the second verse, but I add a bit more chords to it. So that next section sounded a bit more difficult, but it's actually really simple. I'm just taking the key that we're in, F major, and I'm playing the harmonized scale. So our first chord is F major. That's our melody note. Our next chord, or our next melody note is right here. I'm playing a G minor over that. I'm just going in order, F, G, A. Melody note, and then I'm going to A minor. And now we're back to playing D minor like it's written in the music. Going to our G minor 7. This next part, just to change it up, I played it this way with sustained notes. Same like before. This case, instead of going down to this F, I slid up to this F. And just like that, we're done. So I hope you found that helpful or at least interesting. Again, I have a ton of different chord melody arrangements over on oneguitarcourse.com in the chord melody section. And I explain in even more systematic ways how we create this stuff, the harmony involved, the melody involved, what to do if you actually can't read music, you can still play this stuff fairly easily, how to memorize all of this stuff. Again, it's all over at oneguitarcourse.com. And you can also check out my Guitarcraft newsletter because I do longer lessons like this on there. By the way, I'm Andre Flood. I'll talk to you soon.